Hey everyone, welcome to Over 50 Starting Over. I'm Barry Edwards.
And I'm Merle Garrison.
And here we are, November 20th of COVID year, and a whole lot going on. And Merle, I just got back from Nashville. Remember
Oh, yeah.
I slid that
Yeah.
in there.
Yeah.
What a fantastic time. So we road tripped it there. We were largely keeping it weather dependent, and it
Yeah.
beautifully sunny the whole time. A little
Oh,
cool.
that's awesome.
Yeah. But it was horrible here. Like they even delayed the Browns game on
You're
Sunday.
kidding me.
Yeah, because of a storm, a horrible storm with gale force winds and stuff. They delayed it a half hour. So
Wow.
we got out of Dodge, went there, had a great time. And because we wanted to check it out as a possible place to move to in
Yeah.
in the near future. And we're always talking about creating this ideal development we could possibly get several other couples in on. That is our dream of what it would be, a very luxurious and affordable retirement community.
Yeah, we talked about that at the end of season 1.
Yeah. So we're moving forward with trying to find Nolensville in that is just southeast of Nashville is a lot of promise. There's a development just really starting there, a lot of good open land. Definitely has a lot of promise, and it's right next to Brentwood, which is just south of Nashville, which is their affluent community where all the celebrities live. Wow. Oh, wow. Is that beautiful?
Really? What?
Yeah.
I never heard of it before.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've vaguely heard of it before, but we checked out a lot. I mean, so our main thing was to check out the suburbs for the most part. Really liked Hendricks. Is it Hendricksonville? Yeah, it is. Hendersonville as well, situated on the map slightly northeast in this lake/river. It's kind of like a lake with a lot of fingers on it. And
those are nice.
so you got a little bit of everything all through there. You got lower end communities, trailers in the western part of it. Further east you go, you got affluent community. So you got a bit of everything. But I love the idea of being by water. So that was a main appeal.
Me too.
And so we had a great time. We were situated in the Dream Hotel in the Printer's Alley of Nashville, and Printer's Alley is super cool. Have you heard of Broadway?
Never heard of any of this. No, I don't know. I really know very little about Nashville.
I see. I didn't know a lot either because I hate country music, and so I was really skeptical about going until I started doing my research and stuff. Then I started getting excited, and I'm still very excited about it.
You are. That's really cool.
It's the climate that I really want, the full change of seasons, but it's just, it gets darker. It gets darker earlier there than it does like Cleveland because of the time change. Like they're right on, my guess is, because they're right on the edge of that time zone change where the time goes like Chicago. What does it do? Go forward?
Oh, are they on Central Time?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, you're exactly right. I lived in Chicago, and that's how it was. It got dark earlier, and it got light earlier too. I mean, I can remember some nights coming home, and birds were chirping. It's like, but it's like it's still like in the hour between 3 and 4. The sun's coming up. What?
Yeah.
It's crazy, but that's the thing. There's very few places like Cleveland where, like in the summertime, it'll stay light. You could see light in the sky almost till 10 o'clock during the midsummer, and I really love that. I've lived all over the country. There's no place like that.
Yeah, I know. And the thing is too, here, you're right. 3 a.m, it's not that dark. It's the skies are clear or something. But boy, here now, 6 in the evening, it is pitch black, like a black blanket all over, over a globe.
I'm telling you, we have the same kind of thing over here that they apparently have in Nashville, because at like 5 o'clock, it's dark here.
Yeah. So in Nashville, it was getting dark. Like 4 o'clock, you're really watching that sun go down. By 4:30, it's starting to get dark.
Yeah.
Hey, I don't like that, but did like everything else about it except COVID, of course. Boy,
what was that like over there? Was it?
It was dead. It is
Really?
a beautiful town that is well maintained. You can tell they bring in a lot of money. Well, it's mostly from tourism.
Right.
And so that this is hurting them bad. So Broadway Street is their main strip, so to
Uh-huh.
speak. It's
Uh-huh.
the big thing. It's known that you can walk into any place in there. There's going to be a really good live act because these are people that are trying to make it. They just work for tips, and they're hoping to get discovered. So
Mhm.
that's the gig. And so from there, the service industry is enormous. And so imagine all the people that are hurting out there, including, of course, the people trying to work for these artists trying to work for
Yeah.
tips
Yeah.
and get discovered. By the way, right across the street from our hotel in Printer's Alley was, let me find this here. It's in my notes. The Whiskey Shot, like bar and saloon or something
Right.
like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, it was a great place. And we caught this act. His name is Mika Reed, and I took a lot of video of him. I asked him if I could because the place was dead. It's Monday,
Right.
COVID,
Right.
and but it's really great. So I put a sample of his stuff together and uploaded it, and I'll put a link to it in our notes. He was on American Idol season 3.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yeah, he is terrific. Hell of a range, amazing guitar player. So I just encourage anybody to check
Season
him
3
out.
of American Idol. What was his name again?
Mika Reed,
Mika Reed. Okay, so I got
Read, not Ree. That
na-
makes all the difference in the world. But it'll
so
be in the show notes.
were you allowed, was this indoors?
Oh yeah, yeah,
It was.
yeah.
Okay, so there's an indoor event in Nashville. Okay, so that's still kind of good that at least they're
Sure.
able to do that. Even though it was a Monday night and it was dead, you still have the ability to go to something indoors like that. That's
Yeah, I don't
becoming
know.
unusual.
Yeah, well, you're right. But so Tuesday night, we went to Broadway Street, which we're not really into the big crazy party scene. And you could see, even as dead as it was because of COVID being Tuesday and out of season, it's
Mhm.
November, this time of year. You could still see the potential that that's a sloppy drunk kind of place. Like I wouldn't want to be there
Like
in its
Bourbon
prime.
Street.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I forgot my point to that. But you said, well, at least people can, do something a little bit. Dude, they're not
Right.
making money. They're losing money. I
Well,
mean, for
I
sure.
understand. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole COVID thing is causing everybody to lose money. But right
Mm,
now, as we get closer to Thanksgiving, so many towns are, with the spike in COVID, so many towns are shutting down. They're shutting down everything here, at least. And I'm hearing about it all over the country. I just wanted to know what was going on in Nashville because
mm,
it's getting tighter here. I don't know about Ohio.
Well, more bad news. Remember last week I told you about my aunt and uncle getting diagnosed. Well, Lake County, where my family all lives, where we go out
Right.
for the holidays and stuff, is now the third worst in all of Ohio. Like they just got hit, they got hammered. And last night on our group text, we were down to, for Thanksgiving, we were down to, okay, so pregnant cousin will not be there, no kids. Uh, Anybody else, it's like, hey, we're going to be very careful, take all precautions, but know that you're welcome. But if not, we totally understand. We're down to 9 and we just canceled it. My mother canceled it last night. And
Oh,
we're really bummed about that. Lisa and I, it's our
yeah.
favorite holiday of the year.
Mine
Um,
too.
but it's really bad. It's really bad out here right now. And worse, like what this, I haven't been able to stop thinking about it because me at this time of the year, all I'm thinking about is how to deal with that seasonal affective disorder as it is dark and cold. And now, because I always say, I'm fine through December, got the
Right.
holidays, and now we don't have the holidays, man.
Yeah.
This may as well be January 1st starting right now for me.
I understand what you're saying. It's this is a tough thing. This is a
Yeah.
tough thing. It's and it's not like they just put this on us. This has been going on now for months and months, and
Yeah.
the thing is, you keep thinking, oh, we're going to get out of this, and then it gets worse. There's a mental toll that's being had here, besides all the economic toll that's happened.
Yeah.
This being in this lockdown thing has been really, really crazy. We just had more stuff. So first this weekend, we have a curfew that starts, and I
Oh,
just found
really?
out that this particular curfew now has been extended already for a month. Here's a line that we heard. I used to be a carny. Okay, so this is something that sticks out to me. But here he is. The governor says, "Together we can flatten the curve again." And it's like, is this really, I don't know. It's here
Mm,
we have flatten the curve. I'm starting, that's starting to trigger me
yeah.
because it doesn't feel like that's actually what they're doing with this. I don't know. But here we have a mask mandate, which has been in effect, but it's gotten stronger. The restaurants have been shut down all this time, but now even the outdoor venues, which has been the only way that restaurants have been surviving out here, have now been limited to 50% capacity. And they're saying that if a waiter or waitress comes to you, you can when you're sitting down at these outdoor venues, you can be without a mask. But now
Mhm.
they're saying that if a waiter or waitress approaches you, you have to put your mask on. um what, it's it's becoming something that I think they want to be able to enforce out here as well, with penalties. We haven't heard about that yet, but you're seeing that around the country right now, where you can be fined for this type of thing. And with Thanksgiving coming up, they've got all, as I mentioned on the last show, they've got all these restrictions. You can only have people over for 2 hours, 3 households. Oh, now less than 3 households. I don't know why they just say 2 households, but less than 3 households. You can only eat outside. You have to be 6 feet apart. You got to wear masks all the time. You can only go inside if you got to go to the bathroom, and the bathroom must be sanitized. All this crazy stuff. Um, we had some people that were coming out here to visit from Florida. I don't know why they would want to do it at this time, but
Yeah.
they just canceled their trip. I think that was a wise decision, because
Right.
this is a crazy environment we're in.
Yeah. Well, it is. I mean, Cleveland, Nashville, no different from what you're going through, really. Now, as you said, we can go to these establishments, got to wear a mask going in, going out. We've noticed that everyone's enforcing it really well. That's good. But once you sit down, you can take it off. So there's that. Definitely 50% or less capacity everywhere I've seen from Cleveland. Since we did a stop in Cincinnati, both on our way down and way back, which kind of like that city. I kind of decided I'd like
Yeah,
to
it's a
come
cool
back.
city.
I'd like to come back and do an overnighter there with my bike.
Yeah.
So,
Oh,
because
yeah.
I've never been to Cincinnati before. I thought it was pretty nice.
It is a nice town. I like it. Well, let me ask you this about the mask wearing, because we keep hearing about, oh, if people would just wear their masks.
Hmm.
But every store I ever go into, every indoor place, I never see anybody not wearing a mask.
I agree. Because I'm wondering the same thing, Merle. I'm always hearing people debate this. Well, if everybody would wear their mask, though, I could say that I just read about this story yesterday about this Ohio couple who just had to have their wedding recently, and 33 people got infected. And I was like, well, what do you expect? And I was like, and they looked so young. They look like they shouldn't even be legally allowed to get married. They look so young. So I'm thinking, it's a whole bunch of young people primarily. They don't really care, the whole thing. They don't take it seriously. But then they said of the 33 that there are 3 sets of grandparents. And I'm like, God, that's some dumb, irresponsible stuff right there. And they interviewed them and they said, well, we took all the legal precautions, but we think maybe it's like when, everyone's out there dancing and they're not wearing the masks. It's really, they still didn't get it. They just caused the whole outbreak of COVID, and they don't get how bad they screwed up right there. So
Yeah.
anyways, those things are happening.
They seem to be, I mean, I never see them, but apparently they happen. That's going to happen unless I don't know. it seems to me that the more legal thing you put around it, the worse this is going to get. We live in America. I think this whole not wearing or wearing a mask and suggesting it, highly recommending it, and saying that we should do this. I think that's the key. If that indeed is actually what's going to do it, but making laws around it where you could be penalized. I see for the majority of the people out there are cooperating. I actually haven't seen anybody not cooperating.
Well, I don't either, but like I said, that I don't know how that wedding was really legal, but that's the line that we walk right now, trying to give people as much of their rights as possible while not killing everyone with COVID.
Yeah.
I know it's a little segue here. It's not a segue. It's a total switch. I wanted to promote that I've got an upcoming guest speaker coming up. Sandy Mobley. She's the author of Juicy Work. I've mentioned her before. She is a business coach and coaches people on becoming career coaches and how to help people find their juicy work. And in a day where so many people are displaced right now, and that's the thing that probably gets me the most about this whole COVID situation. I don't even think we really talk about the reality of how bad it is out there for a lot of people that have lost their jobs, lost even their houses, lost a lot. So anyways, I think it's a great timely episode that we're scheduled to do our interview on Monday. It would be out Tuesday, special guest episode, half hour. Okay. Let's see what else.
Well, that's going to be great. I'm looking forward to seeing that. And boy, our last one with Rex Lee turned out really well. That's been, it took me a while to see that. And I thought Rex did a great job on our show.
He is an expert. He's one of those experts of experts. And so it was a lot of good information came out very quickly. It was a whole lot of information.
Yeah, I think for our audience, if you get a chance to look at that I know it's on our website still, check it out. I think that one's timeless, actually.
Well, I really do too. It's all about censorship. It's about manipulation online. And we were not prepared for that as a nation. We've had laws for journalism, traditional journalism, that boom, overnight, everything went on the internet. And we just were not prepared for it at all. So as we segue into future stuff,
I wanted to talk about business, keep on the business thing a little bit here, and something that you and I have talked about offline, and we've talked about it a bit online as well. But when it comes to this medium that we have, this video medium that we have in business, obviously all of us are doing this right now, working from home, using video. I wanted to ask you, do you I know you use your camera when you're working with clients, or do you? You do. And do you find that your clients are using their video as well, or do you come into meetings where they're not on video? How does that work for you?
Okay, maybe I misunderstood. I thought you were asking, do I do a lot of video? And I do a lot of video. I do videos for clients. I do them for myself for promotional reasons.
No, I mean like when you're having meetings with them.
So you say, am I Zooming with clients a lot?
Correct.
Yes, it's almost all Zoom. Yeah.
It is almost all Zoom. Do they use their cameras? Do you use your camera? I'm noticing that this is sort of the paradigm, or a new paradigm that we're in, obviously, but the camera part seems like some people use it, some people don't. What are you finding out there?
I'm finding out exactly that some people are using it and some don't. And I'm a little bothered by the people that don't, because I think it says something that I think there's a tiny bit of not being respectful there.
Really?
Well, what do you think? Because if you're on a call with 4 different people and yet one refuses to not put a camera on, I know there's a lot of people that are terrified of cameras. I know that. That just are. And, but I think that we're in an age right now. We're in a period right now, and it's going to be for a little while yet, with this COVID stuff, that we got to suck it up. I think that this whole Zoom stuff is the next best thing to really meeting in person. And I think this is very, very valuable to communication. Seeing someone's eyes, seeing their smile or a lack thereof, I think is very important. We had the conversation before, like the lowest end of communication I think you could do is email.
Right.
So much is lost in translation. And so
Right.
most people assume, if you don't know better, you assume there's a negative connotation to what's being said, you know? And it's easy for that to go off the rails after it goes back and forth 3 times. So with Zoom, and there's also, when did we just recently talk about, well, we do quite a bit, really, social media. I call it online road rage. When you have the disconnect, well, in my opinion, you turn that camera on and it's live on Zoom. It's no longer road rage. You're accountable. You're accountable. That's what I'm trying to say. You're immediately accountable for your behavior. So I think it's really important. What do you think about people that don't turn a camera on?
Well, it's kind of interesting. I start to think that we're in sort of a new paradigm here. So is it, like you said, is it disrespectful to not turn your camera on? Is that being disrespectful? Or am I being disrespectful by just coming in with my camera blazing? Here I am. And then everybody's on. Am I making everybody uncomfortable because I'm using my camera? And I find that at work, because I work for a wireless company and we're all quarantined and we have internal meetings and we have external meetings. And many meetings that I come into, there's sort of a culture around the whole camera thing. For example, if it's a big meeting and one person is speaking for the most part, it seems like everybody turns off their camera.
Because they're on their phone, and this is a thing that immediately bothers me about disrespectful. Yeah, they're not paying attention. And it's accountability again.
You could assume that nobody, that's something you could assume, or you could assume that they're respecting him by not distracting with their little icon pictures where they're moving around and stuff like that. So that's one thing. It is one way of thinking about it.
Okay.
Or we have team meetings. Like I'll have a team meeting after this meeting is over. And at first, when I first came to the company, nobody was turning on their camera except for my boss and me and one other person. And then everybody else was off camera. And then my boss actually said, hey, we should probably turn on our cameras for this. I know it's 8 a.m, but you can do this. And so now everybody actually turns their camera on. Here's something that that just happened just this week. I met my boss for the first time. He lives like 20 miles from me. We haven't met because of the whole COVID thing. And I've been working there since July. We've not met each other. However, we see each other almost daily. We have conversations almost daily over Zoom, or we have teams within our organization. And I felt like I know this guy, like I know you, because we're seeing each other, even though we've never been face to face. So we met somewhere for lunch. And the interesting thing was, it wasn't like we were meeting for the first time.
I was wondering where you're going to go with this, because I thought you could have been like, and lo and behold, he's 4'8". I thought,
he was actually kind of what as far as his stature and everything, it's kind of what I thought he was going to be. So that wasn't a surprise. I don't know how he felt about me, but we sat down face to face for lunch, and it felt so normal that it was like all those times we've been together on camera felt like, I guess what I'm saying is it felt like we had been face to face.
It's not much of a disconnect.
It wasn't. It really wasn't.
Yeah.
Now, going back to business, on my business calls, I always use my camera. I'm in sales. Yeah. And so I really believe that my appearance is part of how I sell, and my facial expressions and my nonverbal communication. that's all part of the integrity that I bring to the table. So I don't want to limit myself that way, especially in a period like this where people need that human touch. And if you're going to trust somebody to do business with them, with your
Gotta look them in the
future
eye.
business, yeah. And but I do notice that probably about 50% of the time, the person on the other end doesn't use their camera.
Well, they're the ones in the power seat, you know.
I wonder about that. Sometimes I think, because I don't ask, hey, how come you don't have your camera on? That would be kind of rude, but I always wonder, what's happening, why they're not, am I making them uncomfortable? I'm not going to turn off my camera unless they ask me to, but that's sort of my way of going about it. But I wonder,
they're multitasking.
If sometimes I wonder, well, do they even have a camera? Maybe they don't have a camera that works. I was in a meeting this week where I joined the meeting and we were waiting for the rest of the client's group to show up, and nobody was using their camera from the client side. And then finally, when the leader of their group came on, she came on with her camera on. And it just made the meeting so much more pleasant and more personal. I'm a big fan. I'm glad we have this technology. And I think also your camera quality is important as well.
Yeah. When you see somebody that is really dark, the environment's really dark, and they look like they got a red light on them or something. See one side of their face. Yeah, it's gloomy. It's gloomy. But to your point, I mean, to go through a pandemic, which, by the way, on average, we go through a pandemic like once every 50 years. So, so to go through this and finally accept Zoom and Skype and stuff as a technology is more of a blessing than any of us ever thought it could have been, prior.
I had a meeting earlier this week with somebody internal, and so two of us were on, and we were using our cameras, and then she came on, and maybe it was me, somebody mentioned, using a camera, and she goes, I'll use my camera. Let me turn mine on. Somebody made a comment earlier that I looked like it was in a witness protection program. And
what did they mean?
I didn't know. And then she comes on, and it's like, the lighting in her place made her all silhouetted. So she was like a shadow person talking. It was hilarious, but that's not going to fly if you're working with a customer.
That would have been even better if she put one of those filters on her voice.
Yeah, exactly. Hello there.
Right.
But I think it's important. I think much like it was earlier where you want to make sure as you're going into an appointment that you have the right apparel on, like your suit. This is a part of this. Not only using your camera, but what you're wearing on camera and what your background looks like. One of the things that I think isn't good, and this is just my opinion, is you tune in and then the other person tunes in and you can see their bed behind them.
Right, because then you're wondering, did they make the bed? Well, how did they make the bed? And what are their sheets look like?
On that. Yeah, exactly. Did you just get out of bed?
Look, there's a toothbrush on the nightstand.
Look at that. Or also your artwork,
Yes.
That becomes a part of the conversation. I've got a guy that I work with. He works for the same company, and we were working with a guy from one of our clients, and his last name is Tuttle, and apparently he has this nickname of King Tut. And so he's got this behind him. He's got this mirror, and it's got the image of King Tut back there. And everyone always asks him, hey, what's up with that? And he's got this great story that he tells about it. So stuff like that is pretty cool, actually.
Yeah. I can't tell you how many times I thought about doing bizarre stuff with this show just to mess with people. Like, I would need another person in on it, but to have something that looks like it could possibly be a body being tugged across the floor in the background, you barely see it. Did I see something there?
Was that right?
Yeah, every week have some bizarre thing in the background go on.
There's a video that's gone viral of a guy, a news guy, doing a report out of his home, and in the background you can sort of like my door back here where you can see the door is this one of his little kids comes in, opens the door, and he's in one of those walkers. He goes flying into the room, in the background. And then you got the mother trying to sneak in and drag this kid out of there. Another kid
I
comes
saw
in.
that.
Oh,
I
that's
think
a
I
great
saw
one.
that. Right.
That was
right.
pre-pandemic, but still really
Did you
funny.
see that video a couple years ago? It was about 2 years ago when we had a bad hurricane, and they totally busted the news. So the people that were on the scene, and they're leaning way over, like, it's really bad
I've
out
seen
here.
that, yeah.
And then way in the background, you see two people in shorts and flip-flops just standing there in a parking lot talking.
Right.
The next morning,
great.
on 8 hours later, 6 hours later on Facebook, these two like college kids recreate a video like that, and they're like, they're spraying water on this guy with a hose, like they're simulating this, and it's horrible out here. They're throwing chairs at them and stuff, like the wind's blowing it all. It was hilarious.
I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, me too. All right, so I'm not exactly sure. We kind of went all over the place here. I'm going to set up that I kind of wanted to talk about today, meditation. And I think when I say something like that, most people go, oh boy, now it's time to multitask. Meditation. But the reason I bring that up is because I talk about how I do battle the sad stuff. And this year, hearing that Thanksgiving was canceled, I got to really take this a lot more seriously now, because with the holidays will be completely canceled. There is not a lot to do. It's dark. It's going to get cold. And I battle the negative thoughts. Sometimes I have bad days. It'll last a whole day of very negative thoughts. So hey, even last night, as I often do, I go to bed using guided meditation, a YouTube video. I say video, I just listen to the audio with earbuds in. And I don't know, does it help, or would I be completely a basket case if I didn't already do certain things? I used to do a lot more meditation, more the traditional sense. I think I need to do more. There's a lot of different forms of meditation, and there's no wrong way to meditate. So I know one of the first things that when you bring up meditation, first of all, everybody goes, oh my God, I know I should be doing it, but I can't sit there. I can't do it. And if you're going to do it, you got to do it right. You got to sit there completely silent, cross-legged in some uncomfortable position and all of that. There's no wrong way to meditate. I used to do a lot of meditation, believe it or not, while doing the elliptical at the gym. And there's different forms. And in this form, I'd be using Wayne Dyer's technique.
Right.
He took this Buddhist technique and he Easternized it by, as he does with a lot of things, he turns it into this.
Westernizes it?
Westernizes it. So he turns it into a Christian Buddhist hybrid. And it would be about doing the Lord's Prayer. Which I can't think of right now.
Our Father who art in heaven,
yes.
hallowed be thy name.
And so what you do is I'm just staring straight ahead. I try to make sure there's no screens flickering in front of my face, on either side of me or in front of me, of course. And I look at the blank wall and I try to imagine the letters. Our Father, O-U. Now imagine the space in between the letters. When you get all of this does is it gives your mind just something subtle and almost nothing to focus on, because when you clear your mind for those brief minutes, that's when it has a chance to become much more peaceful. This is all about clearing your mind, stopping the chatter in our minds. And we almost all of us let it go. And it's a bad habit that exacerbates and gets worse. For me, it's unbearable. And so when you can find the moments, he calls it getting into the gap, and you can string together more and more of these moments of getting into the gap, of having your mind clear. Now, Eastern philosophy, what they do is they use the Buddhist statue, and they concentrate on areas of the Buddhist statue. And in order to just find a gap where you actually clear your mind. Now, when those thoughts do come back, and some horrible thought or whatever is very distracting, the trick is to not go, oh, you failed again, oh, and then now you got a spike in negative feelings. No, you say, oh, okay, I recognize that thought, what is it? Gotcha. And now get back to it. Get back into play there. So that's one. Now, and other meditations are totally doing a mind dump, exploring all the thoughts and feelings, because another author that I like a whole lot, Gary Zukav, and he's not saying anything that I haven't heard from other psychologists, but I just like the way he explained it. He's like, when you got all the chatter going on, you got negative thoughts, we most of us want to just block them out. I don't want to feel that way. I want to feel good. I want to think happy thoughts. And what it's like is, in your head, you got a party going on. And sure, you like Mr. Gregarious, and you like Mr. Happy and party guy, and all the other ones, but you're not too crazy. You don't want to invite jealous guy to the party, angry guy. You tell them no, they're not invited. So you always want to entertain the others. Well, Mr. Angry guy's banging at the door really hard, and it's going to bang harder and harder until you finally let him in. The whole metaphor is, you have to explore your negative thoughts. You have to the more you say, I don't want to hear from you, the louder it's going to get over time and become an irrational part of your personality or your thinking. So there's a balance to that. Anyways, it's something that I learned a long time ago that I have found I need to, I think what I needed, I was thinking this at the gym before the podcast. I think that I need to make a decision to put a goal together. Now that Thanksgiving's canceled, now that the holidays I see are canceled, I'm in emergency mode here,
Yeah.
So I think I need to come up with a goal of how I want to meditate through the next few months, and try to form better mental habits so I don't go into a downward spiral. That drinking is incredibly on the rise now during this time.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Alcohol sales and all of that.
Right.
So it's another sign. Now, it's a depressant. And so
it is.
We got less going on. People can't celebrate holidays. I think this could be a absolutely horrible holiday season as far as suicides and things like that go.
It's a terrible formula for depression that's happening right now, because people have a hard time during the holidays to begin with. I've known people that just the holidays come on, it brings up memories of lost family members and things like that, and so having this kind of thing happen seems to be pretty dangerous. But getting back to your meditation thing, I like what you're saying. So a question for you. So when you are meditating, is it your preference that you were talking about Wayne Dyer and just taking the Lord's Prayer? Do you meditate in that format? Do you take like some type of, this was a prayer, something like that? Do you use something like that when you meditate, or do you use a different method?
I'll just quickly go over a few things right there, because I wouldn't mind talking a little bit more about this as I figure out what my goals are going to be and all of that. So, I used to do that all the time. As I said, I would do it while I was on an elliptical or something like that. Now,
right.
I like that because I kind of got a high motor, and to have the physical anxiety to be taken care of while I'm doing that, I think there's something to it. I think and you're like, there's a thing about exercise that gets serotonins going. I've never heard anybody else talk about meditating like this but me, but I think there's some real benefits to it, because I do have a hard time sitting still. So that is something that I've gotten away from, but I used to do it about 10 years ago for quite a while. And I think I need to get back to that, because I rode to the gym, but I rode my bike to the gym again this morning, but I'm not going to be able to do that much at all from here on out. The weather forecast is such. So I need to get back on that elliptical and figure, I think maybe that'll be part of my new routine once again. So there is that. Now you can also, as I said, what I do more often than anything as far as a meditation goes is listen to particular YouTube videos. Now you could pull up,
Mm-hmm.
whatever your thing is, whether it's stuff about limited beliefs. I like to listen to things about that. There's getting your chakras in order, and anything in between. In all cases, what it's doing is it's talking about, okay, so pay attention to your breath, take a deep breath. There's all these things, man, they put you to sleep pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Then you're working on yourself, subconscious stuff. So I do that a lot. Now, something I think is probably very valuable that I think I should start doing during this time is to simply download an app. There are different meditation apps that are quite popular, and you can say, I'm just going to meditate for 3 minutes. Most of us don't meditate because we cannot imagine sitting in quiet for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, or, most of us have a goal. Oh, I'm going to do it 2 hours a day, and so you never do it.
2 hours. Wow.
Well, it's my point about exercising. Most of us struggle with an exercise routine because our goals are too high.
Right. Yeah.
So we do try to bite it off in a compulsive manner, and we disappoint. It's frustrating, so we just don't do it.
Right.
Well, it's my point to the meditational apps. So do it first, 2 minutes until you conquer that, and then go to 3.
Work up to it, right?
Yeah, and if you work all the way up to 10, maybe you want to stay with 10 because you're going to get a lot of benefit from it.
Right.
But don't do it to the point where it's prohibitive, so you quit. So as I said, during that kind of meditation, you're going to try to quiet your mind. Usually you're just thinking about your breathing, because that's something that takes almost no thought process.
Right.
And that's the whole gig, is to quiet your mind. The more you train yourself to be able to quiet your mind, the quieter your mind will be throughout the rest of your day. And boy, is that something I need. I've gotten to a point where my mind is just, I can't shut it off. When it goes negative, it's torturous. I mean, I can't even work sometimes because I'm trying to get rid of this anxiety that's coming from all these thoughts.
Yeah. I've experienced this kind of thing before as well, where you can't just shut your mind off, and it seems to be like on a downward slope where everything just keeps going down into a negative place. And I think meditation is a great tool to deal with that. From a Christian perspective, there's Christian meditation, much like what you had mentioned with Wayne Dyer.
Dyer.
Was it Dyer?
Dyer, yeah.
Thank you.
That's fine.
Yeah, I know. We were going to probably get a note.
Lisa sometimes calls him Dwayne Dyer.
Dwayne Dyer.
It's Wayne Dyer.
Thanks, Lisa. No, I'm not going to be able to get that out of my head. Okay, so anyway, Dwayne. But in our faith, meditation isn't just clearing your mind. It is taking a scripture and doing exactly what Dwayne was.
Wayne Dyer.
I'm gonna have to meditate on this guy's name.
You can call him the good doctor. Yeah.
But the deal is this: what we know is that this whole multitasking thing of being able to concentrate on several things at the same time is actually not a human thing. It's not. We're not made for that. We're made to focus on one thing at a time. And in meditation and biblical meditation, taking a scripture like the Lord's Prayer, which is in the Bible, and thinking, Our Father who art in heaven, and maybe just saying that under your breath, murmuring that under your breath. And you could be on an elliptical, you could be anywhere doing this. And then you're forming a picture in your mind. What does he look like? He's in heaven. What does that mean? What is thy kingdom come, thy will be done? How does that apply to me? And you start to get this sense of comfort as you're picturing this. I memorized Psalm 91. I've talked about this psalm on the show. It is a psalm of protection. And so during COVID, I memorized this psalm. There's like,
Mm.
I think 18 verses to Psalm 91. And so each verse I've been meditating on, and this picture starts to form in my head of God's protection and his mighty hand, that I'm abiding under his shadow, that he's my refuge. I think, what is a refuge? It's a place of safety. He's a mighty fortress. I'm inside of this fortress and nothing can harm me inside here. I picture myself there. And so all these other fears that are on the outside go away because you're picturing this thing, and then it stays in your heart. The more you do that, the more you can turn that on during your day when you've got all these troubles. You're like, but wait a second, I'm greatly blessed and highly favored. I'm in this place. I have favor, but God is doing these things for me no matter what it looks like, and it gives you power during the day. So it's very productive type of meditation. And there was a time where I didn't really know what meditation was, and like you said, there's a lot of different forms of it, but this has been really helpful to me to get through those anxiety times.
Without question.
Last year I was struggling a bit at the beginning of the year, and I took that book. Boy, you read it too. The Power of Positive Thinking.
Yes.
That was it. And there were so many places in that book where I could just take maybe a paragraph or maybe a few sentences and just meditate on the meaning of what that is. And it pulled me right through that whole thing. And not only that, I was able to be effective with other people that were dealing with the same kind of thing. So it's a powerful, powerful tool in our lives if we use it properly. I do believe that if we try to clear our mind and not think of anything, I kind of think that's a dangerous place to be, because I think your brain's naturally going to try to fill that space.
Well, I understand what you're saying, but the idea is that you're going to allow the trust that you get more connected with source or God, that you're allowing because the conscious mind is a dangerous place to be. It's the heart, the soul is the pure place to be. And that's what you're trying to get to. But I'm going to tell you, I absolutely love what you just shared. And I am going to use that, incorporate that aspect into some meditation, because every negative thought will always come back to, you can just say, anxiety. What is anxiety? It's fear. It's feeling bad. It's fear. And it's, what it is? It's being disconnected from God, from source, however you want to say it, because it's the direct opposite.
It's exactly right, Barry. Exactly right.
So what you're forgetting, and I think about this a lot, is, damn, how do I feel more connected with God? And I'll just have to always use the disclaimer: whatever the higher power is in your book, or even if you're atheist, then just go with the blank mind thing. But you're still allowing for the channel to open up with source, with God. And so I like what you're saying. I like the idea of meditating on these pieces of the prayer. And I think I'm gonna incorporate that, because it's going to, when you get back to knowing and realizing that there is something higher than you that loves you, that you are part of an all loving, and you tap into it, the negative feelings that are making your life terrible, and they are causing ramifications in your reality, when those go away and you replace them with love and confidence, your experiences will change throughout your day. More positive experiences will take place as well, and you'll just be happier. Absolutely. And that's what the name of the game is.
Well, there's a pastor that I really love. His name is Joseph Prince, and he wrote a book called "Right Believing is Right Living." And if you're believing the right way about something, then you're automatically going to live a certain way. And meditation can help to foster that. The more you meditate on something, the more you bring it into your life. And you mentioned fear, and I loved what you said about fear and an absence of God, or not believing what God says about your protection, and that instills fear. But if you really think about it, what's creating fear is a meditation on not believing in your protection. It's the same thing. You're meditating on that. People call it worry. That's what worry
Yeah.
is. You're
Yeah.
meditating. You're seeing. You're focusing on this negative thing that hasn't even happened, and you're actually drawing it into your life.
Mm-hmm.
If you do the opposite, you can't think of two things at the same time, no matter what you think.
Mm-hmm.
You can really only think of one thing. So you focus on, maybe you read it and you're just looking at it and you're reading it over and over again, and you start to say it out of your mouth. These things that come out of your mouth are very powerful. We have to be very careful about the words that come out of our mouth, because we create our world with our words. The tongue is the creative aspect of our body. Think about it. The words that we say are very powerful, and we start saying these positive things out of our mouths. We start creating that reality in our mouths. We start believing in that whole thing. We start to have this calmness, this inner strength. Like you said, Barry, I believe it's a powerful tool as well. And good luck to you on your journey. We should talk about that more.
Yeah, I'll keep you updated. I just wanted to say, from the psychological point of view, that the conscious thoughts that your mind produces are said to be, that's your ego talking, and it's almost always wrong. And so when you learn that you can quiet that, that's what that's the main thing, that you quiet that, then you allow your heart, your and soul, you're living through that, which is the purity. And you're allowing for that connection. So that's why things go better. So you got to quiet the ego. Yeah.
Right. It's your, when you want to do it your way, you know, that's your ego speaking right there.
Yeah. Hey, we got to get to current events.
Yeah, we do. We were gonna do a couple of things. One is, and we're running out of time here, which is so crazy.
Yeah,
this has been a fun one. But you were thinking about doing a new segment here.
Oh, I proposed it to you, and you were all about it. And I suggested, I was thinking about it. I think it came to me last night. Was it the night before? But that we do a little schooling on the competition, that we take several episodes, like we figure it out so we can put it in easily digestible. So we'll just maybe take 20 minutes, a half hour, whatever we see fit, what it takes. And you, Merle, because you are a constitutional expert, take us through a portion of the Constitution. Then we talk about it, what that part means to us. And I think it would be super interesting, but I need this education. I think it'll be fun.
I think so too, and of course, it's a passion of mine and something that I study. I really believe that it's inspired. The document itself. I do want to just introduce that whole thing today, and then we can go on from that. But I do believe that the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence are entirely related to each other, and that you can't have one without the other. The Declaration of Independence, as we all know, is why we celebrate the 4th of July, but it's bigger than just fireworks. It has to do with the actual document that was signed, which is a revolutionary document. There is no other document that's like the Declaration of Independence. Let me just set the stage here, and that's all I'm going to do today, is really set the stage. But this document, the Declaration of Independence, is the foundation that the Constitution stands on. And if you've ever watched a house being built, the foundation is the part that we spend the most time on as far as building a house. If you ever see that happening, this house being built, it's like, when are they going to be done with this hole in the ground? I mean, what is up with that? But what come to find out is that if you build your house on a foundation that's not proper, your house is going to fall down. And what I see here happening in current events today is that evidence of the house falling down and the foundation being cracked. In other words, we're moving away from the foundation that the country has been built on. So the Declaration is a very simple document as far as how long it is, but it's really mind blowing. And I'm going to take you through a couple of sections here, and I'm actually going to read from them. We'll talk about it, and we'll be done. But the first paragraph talks about why it's written. They feel that it's important when one people separate from another people that that people deserve an explanation for why this is happening. And then it goes into this. I'm going to read this, and you've heard this a million times, but you've probably only heard the first part of it. I'm going to go into two parts of it, and then we'll talk a little bit about it, Barry. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just power from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it's the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. So I just want to pick that apart.
It's a lot there, man.
That's the foundation of this country. That those two sentences that I just read, right? Those are just two sentences. Those are the foundation. That's the foundation that the Constitution is actually built on. And let me just pull this apart a little bit. We hold these truths to be self-evident. In other words, these are truths that speak for themselves. They're self-evident. We can see that all men are created equal. In that little passage is a ton. Mm-hmm. It's saying that we're created. It's not saying that we evolved. This is that the most people here in this country, no matter what God they serve, very few people are atheists, believe that they're created. That's what this country is founded on, is that we're created beings and we're created equal. And they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. I didn't know what unalienable meant a long time ago, and I looked it up and I found out this is pretty powerful. These are rights that God has, your Creator has given you, that cannot be taken away. That's what an unalienable means. They can't be revoked. They're yours and they can't be taken away. They've been given to you by God, and they've been given to each individual. Every individual has these. There's nobody above another person. Mm. The whole premise is that we were made in His image, and and that each individual is the reflection of God Himself. We are like God. That among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. These aren't all of your rights, but this is the core of your rights. You have the right to life. Nobody has the right to take your life away from you.
Then we'd have to get into the capital punishment argument.
Well, that's interesting that you talk about that, because this is again the foundation. We're not going to be able to get into everything here, but that's going to be a great discussion right there. Life, liberty, and the. But then it goes on to talk about, to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. In other words, this government that we are forming has everything to do with protecting those rights that God has given you. Not to create rights, not to take away rights, but only to protect what you've already been given by God. And that because you're like God, that it is only by your consent that you are governed in the first place. In other words, who can govern God, right? Unless God chooses to be governed. Much like in the Christian Bible, Jesus came and became a man. He is God, but he became a man like us. And submitted to the laws that were there. It's the same thing. We're doing the same thing. We're consenting to these laws. But then it goes on to say that if that whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it's the right of the people to alter or to abolish it. I'll stop there. But when you take a look at this, it's saying that once a government stops protecting your rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, much like the founders of this country who were in the colonies, they were saying, well, the King George, he's not taking care of our life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. He's in fact usurping that. Then it's our right to form a new country that actually does serve and protect those rights that God has given us. I think it's interesting that we live in a time where we have to look at this foundation and see this our situation through the eyes of that foundation. And government is in a place to protect our rights, not to give us our rights, not to take rights away from us. And as we look at the whole COVID-19 thing, I think it's important as we look back at this, what our country is supposed to be, and we can make a judgment on, are these people doing what they're supposed to be doing or not? What are your thoughts on that, Barry?
I'll say the same thing I've said all along, is we won't really know until we're looking back on it in 2020 hindsight, but we're still going to argue about it for a long time to come because we're so polarized politically, because everybody made this a political thing, and it had to be during an election year. You know, like everything that could go wrong has gone wrong this year. So,
well, let me give you an example here. We talked about censorship on our show with Rex.
Sure.
And so if you're like God, then you know everything, right? Well, we obviously don't know everything, but inside of the Constitution, we have freedom of the press. The press is supposed to be like God for us, where we, like God's eyes, we can see behind closed doors. We can see what people are saying, how things are acting. Places that you and I can't go to, the press can go to, and they can report back what they're seeing, so that we can have knowledge. We can have this much like God. We can be omnipotent. We know all things. But if the press stops doing their job, their constitutional duty, which is related to this foundation, then suddenly our eyes can't see anymore, and that opens up to, if we're not doing things by the natural way, which that is, then it opens up to huge corruption.
Yeah, well, I certainly agree. And the difficulty that I have right now with where we're going with this is that because we're dealing with COVID right now, obviously during a pandemic, you're calling on your government to offer you solutions, which is going to be granting, I don't see any way around it, granting them special powers for what should be a short amount of time. So
I agree with that.
Yeah.
However, we grant them, this is a great conversation, because we grant them special powers to do things in a certain way. Mm-hmm. And what we're seeing is that these powers are not being utilized in that certain way. In other words, by consent of the governed. Our consent is a separation of powers, that the legislature actually is there to represent us, and they are the ones that make laws. They're the only branch of the government that's supposed to make laws. But when the president comes in with an executive order and makes laws for themselves, you're usurping the power of the legislature, and you're bringing the legislative branch and the executive branch into one place. As we go on in the Declaration of Independence, we'll see that that's why they separated from King George, because he was taking all of the branches of power unto himself. And what they're saying is only God is just, and therefore only God can handle having all of those powers in one person. So what we're seeing is governors are making laws that are impacting our life, liberty, and our pursuit of happiness. Mm-hmm. And this is a conflict. And if we don't know that it's a conflict, it's almost like you run out of gas and you're way out, far away from home, and you got $20 in your wallet, but you don't know that you have it, then you're walking home. I mean, it's the same thing. Is if you don't know that you have this right, then you can't utilize it. If you don't know that this is how it's supposed to be, you can't actually take advantage of the benefits of it. It says in my Bible, my people perish for lack of knowledge. If you don't know there's water around the corner, you're going to thirst to death. This is
Right.
the concept here. Is if you don't know that the governor's not supposed to make arbitrary laws and enforce them so that you lose your life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, even in the face of a pandemic, then you can easily be taken advantage of.
Okay. I follow you on that. I think it's a lot for an intro. Would you like to somehow wrap it up, that part of it up for this week, and so we can continue on with it again next week?
I think it's important that this was just a foundational discussion of everything is built on top of that concept. Everything in the Declaration of Independence that I just talked about has everything to do with your First Amendment rights, religious freedom, freedom of the press, freedom of speech, your right to have a weapon, the electoral college. Everything is built on that. We can't have a logical discussion about what's in the Constitution until we understand what I just went over.
Okay, very good. We're going to have to wrap up here within a couple minutes. I wanted to tell you, I thought this was very interesting. I heard on the news this morning that GM has found a breakthrough with battery chemistry, increasing their effectiveness. And over the next couple of years sees that this will decrease the cost of electric cars considerably, making them on par with your standard gas-operated car, which I think and increase their mileage by like 400, off the top of my head, 450 miles per charge, which I think is all fantastic. But I want to give the other side of the coin there that you brought up before when I brought up electric cars, how I'd like things to go further in that direction quicker, that, well, we better do something about the infrastructure because we can't support a great deal of electricity right now. That what we will need. I mean, that's pretty much what you said, wasn't it?
It had something to do with that, and also the government forcing that to happen. Those were two of my big objections.
Well, that's because I said I thought it would be pretty cool if we would give a credit.
For rental cars, right?
Yeah, so that when they go and sell their cars to the public, that we would have more affordable and a lot more rental cars out on the market for the common everyday user. So this is not anything to do with that. This is just, wow, batteries are finally getting better. So, and that's been a big hindrance in the entire auto industry.
I see. Interesting. Well, we're hearing a lot about the electric car, and I mean, here in California, the governor made a mandate that no fuel combusted cars will be sold after, I think it was like 2030. So only electric cars at that point, which is kind of a crazy thing to say. How does the governor do that when he's not going to be in office? And I don't know how that works. So
yeah, that's a good point. I kind of wondered the same thing.
Yeah.
That's just a minor light current event I wanted to throw up because it's quick and easy, but I thought it was very interesting. Do you have anything like that on tap?
I don't. I would say that I saw a movie last night. It was Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
The old one?
Yeah, I've never seen it before.
With who's
Robert Redford and Paul Newman.
Yeah. So that was a little kid.
Yeah. Well, you should see it again. It's a great movie. It was a lot of fun to go through and everything. I got to say, I was a little bit surprised at how that movie went. I had an idea of what the movie was about, and I was all wrong.
I don't remember it at all. It was so long ago.
It was a really fun movie to watch. It's a great story. I gotta say, I've never been a big fan of Robert Redford. I love Paul Newman, but I thought Robert Redford was pretty cool in that movie.
Now you're making me want to check it out again.
Yeah, good
right.
movie to check out. I wanted to also say that we have a fan out there that you mentioned that comedy, the comedian
Oh,
Heffron.
oh yeah, I think that's it. That now I don't remember his name.
Oh gosh, that's
John
terrible.
Heffron, I think.
Is that it? Anyhow, my sister-in-law was listening, and she said that she has seen that guy like 10 times, and they'd just seen him in concert, I guess you would say, just that week when you were bringing him up. So that was a strange coincidence. Really cool, though.
Like I said,
she's a big fan.
Oh, that's so nice. I'm glad that struck a chord. The guy is so likable. That's the thing. You know, he's not offensive, and I like offensive, but he's not offensive, and he's not. He doesn't really curse. He's just funny. You know, it's just real world stuff, and very funny. That is all I have for that I care to share, because we're bouncing around now. And do you have any parting words, Merle?
My only parting words are happy Thanksgiving. I think we'll do a show right before Thanksgiving or not. I don't know. We haven't talked about that.
It'd be the day after, technically.
Friday would be the day after. We did it on Wednesday last time, so who knows how we'll do this. We'll decide this. But in any event, even though we have these restrictions going on, we can still be very thankful at this time of year. And I really believe that we've got a lot to be thankful for, despite problems that we have. It could always be worse. But there are great things to be thankful for, and try to focus on that.
Yeah, appreciate that. Those are good words to live by. Let's keep it bright. Love your neighbors. Thank you, Merle. Love you, brother. Talk to you next week.
Barry.